Good afternoon, everyone. One of the things I struggled with was how was I going to frame my talk this afternoon? As you heard, I grew up in northeastern Alberta. So I wanted to talk about our responsibility as individuals in achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 4. But I've also had this amazing gift of being adopted in to Nyamwezi tribe in Tanzania. And my Tanzanian name is Kapemba, because I was given that special name. I don't know what it means yet. I haven't learned that. Just to remind you, what is Sustainable Development Goal number 4? Well, it's ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. And I'm the one who added the all. So I want to give you a little introduction. You know I am a member of the Métis Nation, and that means I'm going to acknowledge where we are. And the University of Alberta, yes, is on Treaty 6 land. Yes, it's the homeland of the Métis. But what's so significant about this is that it's also at a place where for thousands of years, diverse Indigenous nations met and shared ideas, built relationships, sometimes disagreed, debated, and here we are again today, being in a space where we can hear diverse ideas, debate those ideas, and those ancestors have, the generative space that those ancestors created for us is still alive for us today. But in a metaphorical sense, I want to acknowledge my ancestors and the people who took care of me. So here's a whole group of people that have taken care of me over my lifetime, and both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples who have shaped who I am and who I'm figuring out. What might it take to achieve this goal of lifelong learning for all and equitable and accessible education for all? Like I said earlier, where do I start? So I decided I would start with my own story. How did a little Métis girl from northeastern Alberta end up at an international conference in mathematical education, surrounded by these amazing people? So that's where I want to start my story. And part of this is to say one of the things and one of the ways that we can achieve this goal is by putting structures in place to support the development of the goal. So I started school in rural Alberta in the 60s. And these amazing women around me are who I call my ancestral women. They are my great-grandmother, who could speak 4 languages but never went to school. They are my grandmother, who went to grade 3. And they are my mother, who in the 1940s finished high school. And then there's Florence. And each of these women provided the support for me to be who I am. But then there was this white man who came into the lives and married my mother, and he had a grade 9 education and grew up in poverty. And my sister is there alongside me. So my great-grandmother was a trader, a fur trader, and she could speak the Chipewyan language, which is a Dene language, the Cree language, English, and French, because that's what fur traders needed to do. My father, although was only a grade 9 graduate, reads prolifically, and to this day, at 88 years old, he phones me up to discuss the ideas that have been generated in newspaper articles and readings that he does. So it's about ideas. But in the 70s, a significant thing happened in education in Alberta. One of the significant pieces is that there was a policy put in place that every single school teacher needed to have a university degree. That was not the case in the 60s. In the 80s, then all teachers who taught in this province had university degrees. And I was a teacher at the time. And there was also this influx of composite high schools that were being built. And composite high schools were trying to identify the routes for those students who were not going to go into academic-oriented professions. And there were pathways made for teachers to develop and to become like career or tradespeople to become teachers. And that was in the 80s. And there were programs created in order to begin reflecting the diversity of schooling and the diversity of teaching. And all the way along, there has been very high standards in curriculum. So these are some of the places we need to have highly qualified teachers, we need to have high standards in curriculum, and we need to have pathways for diversity to ensure the equitable for all. So then in the 90s, something else new happened in the province where we had to have ongoing professional growth plans for teachers. And this ensured that teachers were continually learning. And then I, during that time, decided to go back to university because I thought I was going to be a school principal. That didn't work out. I became a university professor instead. But as my responsibility now, I've had the privilege of being in this system. I've had the privilege of benefiting from these strong policies, strong curriculum. So what is my responsibility now as a teacher and as a university administrator? So I go back to my teachings that I've been taught, and I want to share with you a bit something of the 7 sacred teachings because it calls us to be who we could be in support of the implementation of the high-quality education. So I borrowed this image from Winnipeg School District. It's an Anishinaabe teaching because my first teacher that I learned about this was an Anishinaabe elder. So let me go through them. And I'm going to share a bit with you, and I'm going to invite you to reflect on who you are and in the work you do in all aspects of your life as you bring forward these teachings. So the eagle teaches us love, and a love must be unconditional. To feel true love is to know the Creator. Therefore, it is expected that one's first love is to be the Great Spirit. He is considered the father of all children and the giver of human life. But love given to the Creator, Great Spirit, is expressed through love of oneself. And it is understood that if one cannot love oneself, it is impossible to love anyone else. The eagle was chosen to represent this law because the eagle can reach the highest out of all creatures in bringing pure vision to the seeker. Although the supplier of the greatest and most powerful medicine, love can also be the most elusive of the teachings, as it depends upon a world that acknowledges the importance of spirituality. The second teaching is the buffalo, and it teaches us respect. And respect is the condition of being honored. The buffalo, through giving his life and sharing every part of its being, showed the deep respect it had for the people. No animal was more important to the existence of Indigenous families than this animal, and its gift provided shelter, clothing, and utensils for daily living. Native people believed themselves to be true caretakers of the great herds and developed a sustainable relationship with the buffalo, resulting in a relationship that was a true expression of respect. The bear is the one I'd like to pay attention to particularly. Teaches us courage. Courage is the ability to face danger, fear, or changes with confidence and bravery. The bear provides many lessons in the way it lives, but courage is the most important teaching it offers. Though gentle by nature, the ferociousness of a mother bear when one of her cubs is approached is the true definition of courage. To have the mental and moral strength to overcome fears that prevent us from living our true spirit as human beings is a great challenge that must be met with the same vigor and intensity as a mother bear protecting her cub. Living of the heart and living of the spirit is difficult, but the bear's example shows us how to face any danger to achieve these goals. We have the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch, and it teaches us honesty. And honesty is speaking and acting truthfully and thereby remained morally upright. So long ago, there was a giant called Kichisabe. Kichisabe walked among the people to remind them to be honest to the laws of the Creator and honest to each other. The highest honor that could be bestowed upon an individual was the saying, "There walks an honest person." That person can be trusted. To be truly honest was to keep the promises one made to the Creator, to others, and to oneself. The elders would say, Never try to be someone else. Live true to your spirit. Be honest to yourself and accept who you are the way the Creator made you. The Beaver teaches us wisdom, and wisdom is the ability to make decisions based on personal knowledge and experience. So the building of a community is entirely dependent on gifts given to each member of the Creator and how these gifts are used. The Beaver's example of using his sharp teeth for cutting trees and branches to build his dams and lodges expresses his teaching. If he did not use his teeth, the teeth would continue to grow until they became useless, ultimately making it impossible for him to sustain himself. The same can be said for human beings. One spirit will grow weak if not fulfilling its use. When used properly, however, these gifts contribute to the development of a peaceful and healthy community. The wolf teaches us humility. Humility is being humble and not arrogant, recognizing and acknowledging that there is a higher power than humanness, and it is known as the Creator, is to be deemed truly humble. To express deference or submission to the Creator through the acceptance that all beings are equal is to capture the spirit of humility. The expression of this humility is manifested through the consideration of others before ourselves. In this way, the wolf became the teacher of this lesson. He bows his head in the presence of others out of deference, and once hunted will not take of the food until it can be shared with the pack. His lack of arrogance and respect for his community is a hard lesson, but integral in the Indigenous ways. The final teacher is the turtle, and the turtle teaches us truth. Truth is to know and understand all the 7 teachings have been given to us by the Creator and to remain faithful to them. To know truth is to know and understand all of the original laws as given by the Creator and to remain faithful to them. It is said that in the beginning, when the Creator made humans, and gave them the 7 sacred laws, the grandmother turtle was present to ensure that the laws would never be lost or forgotten. On the back of a turtle are the 13 moons, each representing the truth of one cycle of the Earth's rotations around the sun. The 28 markings on the back of the turtle represent the cycle of the moon and of a woman's body. The shell of the turtle represents the body, real events as created by the highest power, and serves as a reminder of the Creator's will and teachings. And it's appropriate that Indigenous people refer to North America as Turtle Island. But how might these 7 sacred teachings influence our responsibility, and how might we live them out, striving, knowing that we are each human beings, and every day we get to start over again like babies? Because we reach the end of the day, we've become wise, we wake up in the morning, we start anew. No experience we've had in any one day is going to be any experience that you've had previously. How do we live this out in achieving in our actions within this huge educational institution, in the interactions that you've had today, in committee meetings you sat at, in your classes, in your teaching perhaps, in your research relationships? I have to ask myself too, and in my work with graduate students. Sometimes I have to ask myself, and I think we're all responsible for this if we're going to achieve high quality education for all. How would I teach? What would I teach? In my classroom, recognizing that the teacher or the instructor and the professor and the learners and the content are all interconnected. I have to ask myself, whose voices do I hear in my classroom? Whose voices do I not hear? Who gets to talk in my classroom? Who doesn't get to talk? I want to strive for de-emphasizing passive knowledge, which is really ironic because I'm standing here talking, which is all passive. But anyway, I want to challenge that. I don't want to buy into the notion that our classrooms and our learners are homogeneous. I want to buy into the system that we each bring diverse gifts into the spaces. And I want to have the courage to fight back. There is no single expert specialist knowledge. And that is a challenge, especially when we work in university institutions. As an administrator, as a researcher, I have to constantly be asking who is at the table and who is not. And if I recognize that some voice is not at the table, then I have to have the courage to raise that. I must be courageous, but I invite all of you to be courageous to seek new pathways for opportunities for all learners, teachers, and people in our society. So I'm going to take you back to 1960 when I first started school. What would be the chances that I would be sitting at a table with 5 female professors of mathematics education? Around this table, we had 4 international doctoral students who have now all completed their PhDs at this university. And one of the things that I have learned in my time is that as a teacher and as a learner is to really think carefully about how ideas are shared with me and to think about the structures of individuals. And as I've come to work internationally and within Canada with many Indigenous groups, language and how our first languages so much structure our thinking. And so when I get frustrated, I have to stop myself and I have to say, what is it that this person, what are the ideas that are there, and not get caught up with the English that I know first. So although English is seen as this broad, unifying language, it's also a colonizing language, and we don't get to celebrate the diversity of the gifts of other human beings. So I challenge you to take up these calls to action and help Canada, the world, achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Thank you very much. With gratitude back to my ancestors, it was an honor.